So, what is something that made you when you got into this role? This is like that made you think this is the job that I want to do.
Huh. I always just liked writing and I liked video games. And so this is kind of that, right? It's kind of uniting those two things. Um, I used to write for about games for magazines. Like I wrote the first ones were like I would write for like websites, that's when I started out when I was younger. And
Mm.
then I had a gig with Game Pro magazine and kind of worked my way up, did some stuff with PC Gamer. And then I was with Wired for a couple of years. I thought that I was gonna go into like that, right? Like writing about games for magazines. And it wasn't really like just game reviews, although I did my share of that. Like I really liked the journalism side of it, which is like finding a story and like interviewing a bunch of people. So I went to school for journalism and all that stuff. And then I found out that you can't really get paid to do that. Like there's there's like not really a market. And I mean this was like when I graduate, like I mean early 2010s. Like
Mm.
the market was already pretty it was falling apart then. And it's really rough. Now there's just like I think there's room for like a few kind of like celebrity like journalists who do really great work and like have book deals and stuff. But like there's not that many, right? You can kind of count on just a few hands how many people are really making a really great living in that. And so, but video games are always a thing, and so actually the second games industry job that I took was at Riot, and I kind of fell into doing the communications work there, and just it really scratches a lot of the same itches, basically. Um, yeah, so I love my job. I don't know, I have a blast doing it. It is kind of felt just like a continuation of that thing that I was doing before.
To pick up on a point, because one of the things that 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 we try to cover here is that initial, like, that start. A lot of people say, "How did you start doing this?" And a lot of times it's like, "Oh, well, I did the thing," and that's always. I mean, it's as simple as it is. It's also the hardest to kind of build upon, especially when someone goes, "I don't know what that means." So picking up on what you said, it's like, "Oh, I started to write on websites." How did you go about that? Like, I'm assuming you were in high school or early stages of college. Like, what
Yeah,
led
yeah.
you to that path specific?
Yeah. I actually started I would just lie about my age and send pitches to magazines like crazy. So, like, I was, like, 15, I think, when I started doing that, but I would send a pitch and I would just, like, pretend I wouldn't say anything, but if they ever asked, I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm in my 20s and I'm, like, a journalist." And, like, that super worked, and I've never felt an ounce of guilt about that at all. Like, if the writing was good enough for them, like, why
Yeah.
hamstring myself by admitting that I was, like, 16 or whatever? So,
All right. All
yeah,
right.
I did that
All right.
with GameSpot and, oh, no, GamePro in particular, and I actually, I admitted that to the guy who was, like, my editor, like, years later,
Yeah.
and he was like, "I kinda wondered, but" yeah.
The 10-year sting operation is over. We got him, boys.
Yeah,
Bring
yeah,
in the
yeah.
bring in the
Bring it in. Bring it in.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's my advice for kids is just don't use the anonymity of the
Yeah.
internet to
Yeah.
just try
Yeah.
to get your work out there. That's it can't hurt, right?
And yeah, and I gotta ask, how, like, rough, how many times did you send a pitch to a magazine, um, before you got one to be like, "Yeah, well, like, let's work with it."
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean hundreds. And it was like it's not like when you read about people who get into like book publishing,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, they got rejected 100 times and then they finally got their deal and now they get deals constantly. Like when I was doing freelance writing, that's not how it works. The way it
Mm.
works is you get rejected 5 times a day, every day, and one out of every 10 you get accepted because you're constantly trying to do one story over here with this outlet and one over here with this one. And most of them are ignoring you. Like, so I got like, yeah, hundreds of rejections, but the thing that wound up working for me was that I found a niche.
Mhm.
And this is like advice that just really doesn't apply because I have no idea how the like media publishing space works now. Like
Sure.
I don't think you can do this anymore, but like at the time there was the iPhone had just come out basically. Like the App Store had just come out. So the iPhone had been out for a couple of years, the App Store had just come out And I realized that there was like no competition to write about these games. Literally, no one was writing about them. No one gave a damn, basically. And like people who really cared about games were like they wanted to write about the new Zelda game, right? Like they didn't
Mhm.
have any aspirations to write about Doodle Jump. Um,
Please
so
tell me
for
that was something you wrote. You wrote about something
oh
called Doodle.
oh yeah, Doodle Jump, dude, it's a
Okay,
classic. It's
I'm gonna
actually
look that up.
that game is one of the best iPhone games ever, and it's still in like the top 200 on the charts, like 11 years later.
Wow. All right.
It's made by this dude named Igor from like Poland, and he's like a super millionaire now because he made like a 99-cent app called Doodle Jump. But like, so I started writing my iPhone games, and I
Mhm.
I started writing for some blogs that paid like $25 an article. Like I would
Hmm.
just pitch them, right? And they were like, "Yeah, sure. No one else wants to write about these." I think what one of my early claims to fame is that I published the first ever review of Angry Birds because it was like
Oh,
2009. Yeah,
wow. Okay.
and if you look that up, you probably won't be able to find it. But it's like garbage, you know. Like I wrote it like whatever, like 11 years ago. And so then I kind of had this niche, and then as iPhone gaming got more and more popular, there was like more and more interest from like more mainstream publications who were like, "Yeah, we need a guy that can do the phone games or whatever." Or like, the iPad came out, and they're like, "Can somebody write about like the top 20 iPad games?" Right? And so then I would come in and like pitch that and be like, "Look, I know about all the games." Uh, and yeah, it kind of worked out that way.
Okay.
I
Okay.
found it, by the way.
Oh,
Okay.
Christ.
Find Doodle Jump, or did you find the review,
I
or
found the Mac
both?
Stories interview with Ryan Rigney, the author of Button
No,
Wars.
delete that. Delete that. So that was actually cool. Like that was like the real career jump was
Mhm.
I started pitching like a book deal idea of like let me write a book that's about the best iPhone games so far and the stories behind them.
Hmm.
Um and so I like interviewed all the people who'd basically anyone who'd made a decent iPhone game at that point, which was like 2011. I just call them up and be like, "Hey, do you want to talk for this book?" And all of them said yes because like no one else was interested in talking to them.
Yeah.
Um, and did it was like small press, like a fun little book about iPhone games. That was the early career moves that I think led to me pretty directly being able to show that I put in the work and had a resume worth looking at to apply to a place like Riot, you know?
So you are a published author.
Yeah, but it's like I don't they never paid me anything past the advance, you know, like it didn't didn't actually make any money or anything like that. I don't
Well,
know. Anybody
I'm
who
a,
self-publishes now probably gets more readers than that book did.
well, I mean, I'll say it like you've done something that most people have not done, which is publish a book. So
Yeah.
you've written a book. Like that's
Do
No,
you
case
have
in
a
it's
point.
cool.
copy of it
Yeah,
still?
it was cool. What was
Oh
that?
yeah, did they at least give you a copy?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. They sent me like 10 and then they also had it translated into Korean for some reason. And so I
Okay.
have hold on.
Oh
He's
no.
gonna bring it out. He's gonna get the book.
Oh
There it is.
yes,
Is my
that's
name in it?
amazing.
No, my name's not in English. They rendered my name in Korean, I guess.
Yeah,
For
Pretty
for
good.
audio
that's
listeners, Ryan
awesome.
has brought out
Pretty
a
good.
book that he wrote and published about iPhone games. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
That was translated for some reason into Korean.
Into
I don't
Korean.
know why. And they published it like 4 years later in Korea. So there was a lot of really confused Korean kids being like, "The original Angry Birds though?" Like cuz it was like they were on 3 by that point.
Yeah,
All
that's a
right,
great
coming
story,
off
by the
of
way.
that tangent, that was a great story. That
That's a
might
great
rank up
story.
there as the best story ever told on Dev Dive
Oh no.
so
I
far.
apologize for that.
Says a lot about the show.